Hello guys, welcome back. This is episode 13 of our multiplayer chat series, and this should be our final episode. And this episode will only be in the game state, implementing the persistence of private conversations and retrieval of private conversation messages and passing those back to the player controller so they can then display the private conversation windows. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's open up the BP game state and go to the class settings, and you should have the BPI private chat system interface implemented. We created this interface in the last video. Let's create a new event graph called private chat, and let's open up this event graph. We don't need anything else for now. Let's go ahead and look for send a private message. Add the event, which is exposed through the private chat message or the private chat system interface. Let's add a new function called add conversation, add private conversation message, and it will have three inputs. The first will be of type string, and we will call it to username, the username of the person we're sending the message to. And then schat message will be the type of the second parameter, and we will call that private message. And the third will be of type BP player controller reference, which is from player, the player controller reference of the player that is sending the message. And let's make that private and leave it as not a peer. Let's go back to the private chat, and let's drag this here and connect up all of these inputs right there. And we'll assign this to the category private chat system. Let's go to the add private conversation message, and in here let's go ahead and add a switch authority, and then let's right click to username, promote to local variable, and call to username. Oh, we already have that. Here, let's do this. Let's select the function and call this recipient recipient username is fine. And then we will call this local variable to username. Oh, let's compile and save, and then we should be able to rename it. Okay, let's check. Okay, that didn't break the wire. Let's go ahead and do the same for these others. Right click, promote to local variable, and we will call the private message local variable the message, and right click from player, promote to local variable, and call this one from PC, and connect up these execution wires. And then let's drag off from PC and call my username. Gets the username of the player controller that is sending the message. And let's go ahead and promote to local variable and call from username, or yeah, we'll just call it from username. Keeps it consistent with this one back here. Okay, let's go ahead and add an additional function, and we'll call this one find private conversation between two inputs, both of type string, and we will call the first one player 1, and we will call the second one player 2. It will be private and peer, and it will have three outputs. The first of type boolean, which will be is found. The second of type integer, which will be index, and the third of type private conversation, which will be called private conversation. Let's go ahead and compile and save, and This private cannot be called. Let's go to the definition of this one, and we will make it public and leave it as a peer. And then let's go ahead and close the player controller and compile again, and that's gone. Okay. Let's go back to this function, add private conversation message, and let's select the find private conversation between, assign it to the private, which one? This one? There we go. I think that's the right one. Okay. Assign it to, hold on, let's figure out why there's multiple. Compile and save. Okay. Let's go ahead and drag the find a player conversation between. And what we will do is take the to username, plug it into player 1, and the from username, plug it into player 2. The order should not matter. Add a branch and connect up the isFound wire to the branch. Right click the index, promote to local variable, and call this conversation index and set it. And right click the private conversation outputs, promote to local variable, and we will call this one conversation. Set it as well. Okay, now this code is pretty similar to the one for our chat channels. Up here, add a comment, and this will be for add message to existing conversation. And the one down here will be conversation doesn't exist, create one. That's pretty much how this will be branched out. Let's go ahead and grab our conversation structure, don't set, and get it. Drag off here and break it. And we need the messages only. Oh, come on. Drag off the messages and call add. And grab the message, plug it in there. And then you can connect up the execution wire. And then let's see. Let's go ahead and drag off the messages array here. Actually, no. Drag off the, grab the conversation, get it, and then call set members in the structure. And we will set the messages. And drag off this array, set it right there. Connect this up. And then we need to grab the, I did not create it yet. Let's create a new class variable called private conversations. Make it private, and it should be an array of S private conversation structures. Compile and save. Go ahead and drag this here, get it, and then call set array element. And the index will be the conversation index that we set earlier. And the item will be the struct out reference. And that's that branch for now. Let's go back here. And we need to call new GUID, because essentially we just create a make private conversation structure, and you see this conversation ID here. We'll need that. Let's right click this, promote to local variable, and we'll just call this convo ID, and we can set this right there. Okay, let's go ahead and make this wider. Let's drag off here and set, actually we'll just do this, convo ID, plug it in right there. Players, let's call a make array, And for the first element, we can make or assign it the from PC. What we need to do now is we need to create another function called find username player controller. It will take a string, which is username, and it will output a boolean called is player found, and a second output of type BP player controller reference, and this will be player controller. And essentially what this does is it takes a username and it finds the player controller for that username. Let's go back to our add private conversation message. Let's make the find username player controller private and peer. Go ahead and drag here, get it, and drag off the to username, connect it right there, and the player controller, we have to add an additional pin to the array and drag it right there. Okay, we can make this taller. Let's drag off the messages array and make an array, and assign that array the message local variable. And drag off the player usernames, make array, and assign the to username and the from username. We have to yet again make an additional pin and assign the from username to that array. Okay. And let's see. And then let's go ahead and drag off. Let's go over here, grab our local variable conversation, and set it to the new private conversation structure we just made. Okay. And then let's get the private conversations class variable array, get it, and call add, and add our new conversation structure to that. And then what we need to do is create a new function called notify private conversation updated. And then it will take an input of type S private conversation structure, and we'll just call this private conversation. And let's go back to our add private conversation, and let's go ahead and make this private and assign it to the private chat system category, compile and save, and then drag this on the event graph and plug in the execution wires for both of those branches, and then grab the conversation local variable and plug it in right there. And we are done with this function. Pretty similar to our regular chat channels. Okay, let's go ahead and open up the find private conversation between, and let's get this out of the way. Let's add in a switch authority, and then let's right click player 1, promote to local variable, and we'll call this P1. Right click player 2, promote to local, call it P2, or P2, not P1. Okay. If it's remote, we will return is found false, index, set this to -1. Let's grab our private conversations array, get it, and then let's loop, and then right click array element, promote to local variable, and we will call this the conversation. And then right click array index, promote to local variable, and we will call this the index. Let's grab the conversation, get it, let's break it, and we only need the player usernames. Let's drag off the player usernames and call contains item, and copy this, paste it because we need it again. And let's grab P1, plug it in to the contains up top, and P2, plug it in the contains in the bottom. The order does not matter. And let's go ahead and grab one of these Boolean wires and do an AND Boolean. Add a branch, connect the AND up to the branch. And for the true branch, we will have a return node. Is found will be true, and the index will be the index, and the conversation will go in right there. Pretty simple stuff. So we can delete this. So we receive two usernames. We iterate each private conversation in the game state. For a map that has thousands of players, this strategy probably won't work too well, because then you're iterating the array thousands of times. So you might have to do some optimizations for a large amount of users. So we iterate each private conversation, and if the private conversation contains both of these players, then we return the conversation. It's that simple. Let's open up find username player controller, and in here, let's get this out of the way. Let's go ahead and drag off here and look for switch authority, and then let's go ahead and grab the username, right click, promote to local variable, and we will call this search username. And then what we need to do is we can go ahead and grab this return node, plug it into the remote, is player found false, and leave that as is. Let's right click and look for get all actors of class. And for the actor class, we need to type in BP player controller. This will get all of our player controllers in the map, so we can then iterate for each loop, each one, and we can look at each one and figure out if his username matches the one passed in here. So let's grab the BP player controller reference, drag here, and cast to BPI player controller, uncheck context sensitive, and if it succeeds, let's go ahead and drag off this and look for get username context sensitive, context not sensitive, and do the interface call. And let's go ahead and drag off this and do not equal to, and make it context sensitive again, not equal to string, search username. I'm sorry, that should be equal. If username equal our username that we are searching for, let's add a branch. Then let's add a return node and set is player found to true, and take the array element, add a reroute node, add another reroute node, and plug them in there. Let's go to the notify private conversation updated, and in here let's right click the private conversation input, promote to local variable, and we will call this conversation. Let's grab this structure and break it, and all we need out of this is the players. Let's grab this, do a for each loop. Let's take the array element and cast to BPI private chat, and uncheck context sensitive, and we want the conversation listener. And drag off this interface pin and search for on private conversation. We need to make it context sensitive again. No, we don't. On private conversation updated interface call. And for the private conversation, we'll grab the local conversation variable, get it, and return a copy of it. We are returning a copy because we want this copy to stay internal to the game state. If we were to not return a copy of this conversation object, then it's possible that the outside code, in this case the player controller, could modify this structure, and that should be considered a security risk. Okay, let's open up under interfaces, open up get private messages. And in here it's pretty simple. Let's get this out of the way. Right click conversation ID, promote to local variable, and call this convo ID. And then let's we need to add another function. Let's go ahead and add it right now. Find conversation, or we'll call it find private conversation. Let's add it to the private chat system category. Let's make it private and pure, and its input will be conversation ID, which is of type GUID, and it will have two outputs: a boolean is found and a S private conversation structure, and we'll call it private conversation. Let's compile and save and go back to our get private messages. And I thought we made that pure. Interesting. Find private conversation. There we go. I must have not hit compile. Okay, where am I at? Okay. We can just take this convo ID, plug it in there, and add a branch if it's found. What we need to do is we need to break our private conversation structure, and all we need is the messages and true return node, and plug in the messages array, and false will be, oh, come on. For the false branch, we will use this return node. Okay, and I guess we don't even need this convo ID. Let's just plug it in right there. And for this requesting player, I won't connect it up, but what you could do is you can use this player controller reference as a security check to make sure. Actually, tell you what, we can just do this now. So let's go ahead and get the player username. Nope, it's the players that we want, and we can drag off this and do a contains item, and if it contains the requesting player, let's create a new local variable for the requesting player, and we should do the same thing with the conversation ID, I guess. Promote to local variable, convo ID, Okay, break this. We'll use the convo ID local variable. Get this out of the way. And let's see. It's going to be a little bit messy, but that'll be alright. Drag off this and do an AND boolean. So if it's found and the player controller that is requesting the private messages is in the private conversation structure, then we know he has access to get those messages because he's in it. Okay. And that should be that. I don't think I'm missing anything. Okay, I don't think we're using this at this time, but it's there. Let's open up the find private conversation, and in here, let's go ahead and add a switch authority. And let's right click the conversation ID, promote to local variable, and we will call this convo ID. And set it. And then let's get the private conversations array and loop through it. Drag off the array element, break the structure, and all we need is the conversation ID. And do a equal equal convo ID, add a branch, and a return node is found will be true, and the private conversation will be this array element. And then let's drag off the completed. Actually, we can just connect up the return node here. Okay, let's go ahead and test this. We'll play. And let's see, I'm not sure who's who. Let me send some messages in here first. So we have Venom and we have Grunt. So I'm going to do PM Grunt. Hey Grunt. And what happened there? Did I just send a private message to myself? Wait, so I must be Grunt. This should say Venom, I think. Let's try this. PM Venom. Okay. So this player's Venom. I guess I should have added strings to the UI. And yeah, so this title should say Venom. I need to figure out what's going on there. Okay, let's see. Client 3 is, so client 3 is Venom, and then client 1 is Grunt. Yeah, so this should say Venom. I'm not sure what I did wrong there. Let's see. If I type in here, interesting. Well, I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. Let's try this. So player 3 is Venom, so I will send a message to Grunt /PM Grunt. Hey there, Grunt, this is Venom. There's a bug somewhere. Let's see. Errors and warnings. Accessed none. Trying to read property player state. Uh-huh. I think this is definitely the problem. Let me check my notes really quick. Okay, yeah, I did. I made this mistake last time when I was putting this together before the recording. Let's get the player state. Cast to BP player state. Like that, and plug it in there. There we go. Let's go ahead and, needs a return. Return. Just a blank username, compile and save, and play. And let's try this again. Client 1 is grunt, and client 3 is venom. So I'm going to do PM grunt, hey grunt, and that's hey grunt. So the title is grunt, which is what we want, because this is venom sending a message to grunt, but I see we still have some weirdness down here. Hey there. Okay, let's try this. /PM venom. Hey venom, this is grunt. Okay. Oh, come on, mouse. There we go. So we've got some username bug going on with the player controllers. Let's see what else is going on here. None. Trying to read property custom event conversation window from function. Let's go to private chat, and I bet I know what's going on. Let's go to the chat, go to the WB private conversation, and the graph. Let's close these and go to the event graph. And on send a message right here. Let's open up the input on preview key down. And refresh. Look at that. That's where I went wrong. Okay. Let's bring this over. Conversation window. Come on. Drag off this. And get a reference to self. Compile and save. Play. And let's try this again. Client 1 is grunt, and this will probably be venom too. Client 3 is venom. So /PM grunt, hey venom, a message to grunt, which is the good, because I'm venom in the client 3, the window title is grunt, and venom, hey venom, hold on, client 3 is venom. Oh, I meant to say hey grunt, not hey venom. And then here it says message to grunt. That should not say grunt, that should say venom. Client 1 is grunt. Okay, so the username here is alright. That's good. Hey grunty. Okay, so let's figure out why the conversation window here is saying grunt. Let's look at make conversation title, get conversation participant. What did I miss? BP player controller, get username. If the player controller username is not equal to the participant name that we are currently iterating, then return that. And let's go ahead and play this. And client 1 is grunt, and client 3 is venom. Let's do /PM grunt. Hey grunt, this is venom. And that's blank, and that's grunt, and that's blank, and that is grunt. Okay, so why is that blank? Get username, which is the BPI player controller interface. Player state, cast to BP player state. And why? Let's add some of these. Let's go ahead and play. And let's try this. /PM grunt, hey grunt, this is Venom. Okay. Venom. Grunt. Blank. Interesting. Let's see. What could be going wrong here? I do not have this issue on my reference project. Oh, username should be replicated. Derp, file and save, play. Okay, that makes sense, kind of. Okay, so player 1 is, and let's remove these breakpoints, resume. Player 1 is grunt, and come on. Player 3 is Venom, so /PM grunt, a grunt, this is Venom, and let's remove this breakpoint, resume. Okay, there we go. So a message, this is grunt, this client, and the private message that Venom sent is right here. The window is titled with Venom's name, and this is Venom's client window. His conversation is titled grunt because it's a conversation to grunt, and his name is here. And so let's try this. Hey grunt, Venom, that's good. Grunt, that is also good. And he can reply to that conversation in this chat box. So PM, Venom, hey Venom, what's up? Grunt. Now if I close this, and he sends me a message, hey grunt, how's it going? You see it opened up his window, his previous conversation, and this is just the way it, you can change this and you can clear it out if you want. I decided not to clear out the messages if the conversation is terminated. So yeah, that's the series. So you now have a pretty cool multiplayer chat with global, trade, local, guild, and this private conversation system, which supports closing a conversation and dragging it around the window. The only thing I didn't implement, and I won't implement, at least in this tutorial series, is a friends list. It shouldn't be too hard for you to figure that out. You just show, you track who's friends with who, and you can even use their username like I did in this system. And you provide a list of friends, and then when you click on a row, it'll show a start, a new message button. You click on that, and then it basically creates a new conversation. So again, thanks for watching my videos for this series. I would love your feedback. I'd love to be able to improve my recording, and so I can help everyone better. So yeah, thanks. Please subscribe, share, and the usual. So alright, I will see you guys next time.